It is the 19th of January 2018. January is definitely moving as quickly as it can. And I'm very excited about it. Finally, as we're starting, Dennis here said, well, finally, it seems like January is coming to an end. But I am Rowena Kajumba with my
Dennis
colleague here, Dennis Sigora. And it is Friday. We do go through stories that have been trending within the week. However, today will be a little bit different. We shall be having a guest later on. Now, Dennis, I must say it is a very beautiful morning.
I agree with you. It's also a day whereby Ugandans will woke up with some sad news. Looks like the Cranes has been knocked out of CHAN. What is happening in Morocco. And also there is another good news in the football arena, is that George Weah is being sworn in as president of Liberia of today. So I think it's not all about doom and gloom, but looks like the positives are there.
Yes,
I think it will be a dream. It might be, for George Weah, I don't think one time he thought that he will ascend to such level, whatever status in the society or in the world, because now you can imagine from a footballer.
Indeed.
I remember in those days, a footballer, he was one of the few professionals from Africa, went to Europe, became the World Player of the Year, if I'm not wrong. And now it's really exciting. It shows that everyone can do, it is possible. You know, there are people who think that if I'm doing this, it seems it's very impossible for me, but it has shown, George Weah has really proven that even a footballer can become a president.
Very true. And what is also happening is that people are still talking about Donald Trump's insults towards the African countries. Now, what is surprising me is most Africans are agreeing with it. And I will tell you this, for me, I will still not agree with him. Because for so many reasons, in my mind, if I told you my side, is that, well, we are in this sort of thing. He's a representation of what made us what we are now as Africa. Yes, we need to wake up, but he represents those very people that put us into the situation we are in today. So for me, when I look at him, I see...
So for that case, I think the word he used, I don't know if I can use it on this TV or whatever, but I don't think, there are very many. You see, the good thing is that the social media nowadays has a lot of analysts, panelists and everything, and realize there are dissenting views regarding what Trump said. But he has come out, of course, he says this, tomorrow he says something else. He said he never said that. But you know, it's very, in a world whereby everything is recorded.
Indeed.
It can be played, it can be stored in an archive. It can be used against you. That's why they say nowadays, actually you've seen in the US, when they're arresting a suspect, they say everything you say will be used against you, probably in the courts of law. So what he said, there are those ones who said it's right, what he said was good. We probably had done, he might have had something to, he wanted to communicate something, but that is not the right way of communicating for a statesman to communicate.
Still, for me, I feel it doesn't have a right to say that, because they're the same people. In my mind, I don't want to seem like I'm racist, don't quote me, but in my mind, I feel this is a representation of what, or a shadow, or rather, of what made Africa what it is. Because see, so many of our things are taken, and that's why they're where they are. No offense. Okay, moving on to a very fast story. Now, tourism stakeholders' efforts to market destination Uganda as one of the best in the world is yielding fruits. Now, Ravi Chandran, a famous Malaysian mountain climber, has for the first time visited the country and has set off to conquer the famous Margarita Peak at Mount Rwenzori. Now, while flagging off the climber, Doreen Katusieme, the Permanent Secretary Ministry of Tourism, expressed optimism of the renowned mountain climbers visiting Uganda as a result of Ravi's much popularized Rwenzori expedition. And of course, Dennis Sigora reported this. Let's take a look.
Ravi Chandran Tarumaningam is a mountain climber who has conquered Mount Everest solely and is on the quest to climb Mount Rwenzori. The renowned mountain climber will dare the Rwenzori's Margarita Peak, a feat that is expected to take him 8 days.
We have lost many friends to mountains, and we are still losing every year to the mountains. It's something that we have to live with, but day by day we are so much improving in terms of knowledge and skill because of our travel around the world, that we could actually identify different skills that are being implemented or being practiced around the world. So I hope that I will be here to learn some skill besides giving.
Ravi has faced numerous challenges in his expedition on mountain climbing, and at one time he lost and injured some of his fingers.
I've been inside crevasse, I've been inside avalanche, I've lost my fingers due to cold -50, where I removed my own fingers. I've been many deep affected incidents.
Ravi's expedition of the Rwenzori mountain comes on the heels of aggressive efforts by the tourism stakeholders and government, whose aim is to market destination Uganda is one of the best in the world. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Doreen Katusime, gives an insight to some of the marketing strategies.
So we are now working very closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the missions. Just before I came to this meeting, I had our ambassador to the Nordic countries, who recently brought a team of investors, and they were able to visit most of the destinations. So it is now a specific assignment, like Samantha was saying, for not all missions, but some of the missions which are especially in the key source markets have even been given a budget for that.
Her sentiments are re-echoed by Stephen Asimwe, the Executive Director, Uganda Tourism Board.
Suffice to also note that Ravi is also coming to promote the destination from a mountain tourism perspective. Adventure is becoming a big niche, and Uganda arguably has some of the best experiences.
At more than 5,000 meters high, the Rwenzori Ranges are among Africa's highest mountains. Margarita, the third highest peak in Africa, is 5,109 meters. Dennis Ikoa for UBC News in Kampala.
Thank you, Dennis. Now, I must say, I'm going to tag along when you're going for mountain climbing in a few months. But let us take a look at a very beautiful scenery of the mountains. Very beautiful, I must say, and like I said earlier, I'm tagging along.
Yes, I'll be conquering Margarita in April. So I don't know if you're fit enough. Someone told me it's not an easy feat.
It's not easy, but well, you need to first find out.
I think we should start with the gym. We run a lot, of course.
Start with the
also, the other guy, Ravi, he doesn't have his fingers. Actually, 8 are missing, and he said those fingers he had to eat them to remove them because they froze.
They froze.
He froze. He could not move, and right from the beginning, so it's not an easy challenge. It's not an easy feat. So, Rowena, if you're up, you're ready for it. I think you might be forced to write your will before you set up.
Yeah, well, true. But moving on, Uganda Hotels, Food Tourism and Allied Workers Union has asked government to ratify and domesticate the International Labour Organization Convention 189 on decent works for domestic workers in accordance with existing labour laws and fundamental labour standards. Now, they say that absence of the law affects Uganda's labour force.
Hotels, Food, Tourism and Allied Workers Union says government should move fast to enact the law on decent work for domestic workers. During a National Executive Council meeting in Kampala, the union said they promote rights of workers through collective bargaining by negotiating with employers on behalf of the unionized workforce. They appeal to government to protect the rights of workers being exploited by the mushrooming labor agencies in the market.
And there is a company, I remember when we met you at the level of Noto, we raised this matter with the PS, but we have not found a solution yet. There is one company in Uganda called Job Connect, which is used by most of these employers to disenfranchise workers' rights by turning them into casual laborers. Even people who have worked for 10 years with a particular company, Job Connect comes and takes all of them as casual laborers, which is not right and which is not provided anywhere in the law.
We have very many supermarkets. That is a new sector that has been registered onto this union, and we hope to do massive recruitment in the supermarkets. The other area will be the food processing area. We also have signed around 3-4 agreements with the food processing companies, but we hope to enlarge that area also.
The Principal Labour Officer, Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Apollo Ozoma, said government is engaging different stakeholders to ratify and domesticate the International Labour Organization Convention 189 on decent work for domestic workers.
It is not true that government is reluctant to ratify the conventions, but we need to engage in the processes involved in order to have the conventions for domestic workers ratified. And the process also has key stakeholders. The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is one of them. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is one of them. The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, they all have their role to play.
Mr. Ozoma urged the trade union leaders to operate within their constitutional mandates to scale down on the leadership conflicts within the trade unions. I'm Nafka Farida and Clement Wangira reporting.
Well, thank you so much, Nafuka Farida. Now, moving on, fishing communities in Katwe, Kabatoro, and Kayanzi landing sites in Kasese district want government to intervene to resolve the conflict with Congolese fishermen over unlawful fishing on Lake George. Now, Congolese fishermen allege illegal activities threaten fish stocks. Now, very interesting, Dennis, on how we've been looking at the issue of fish and the illegalities that come with it, and also how many fishermen are getting young fish or fish that's not ready for the market. And for some reason there, it has been the talk, but we still see that the problem keeps coming up every other day. Someone comes up and talks about it.
You see, we can talk a lot, even here in the studio, but enforcement is the biggest problem.
Yes.
I've been to the islands of Lake Victoria, a couple of them, close to 6 or 7. Actually, it might be more. And you look at those islands, the fishermen islands, or I call the fisher islands, they are overpopulated.
True.
There are no schools in that place. That simply means people there are only concentrating in fishing. So tell me, and the number, these guys are producing kids at a very high rate. So tell me, and immediately the kids grow up, they get into the same business. Now, without any serious regulations by government, it becomes very hard to ensure that the fish stocks increase. Because right now, you realize if you go to Kalangala, they will tell you like Bugala Island, fish is more expensive in Bugala than even in some places here in Kampala. So why? The fish stocks has been depleted. Guys have gone, there are illegal fishing gears, nets which they sometimes say they come from China or whatever. People actually, some of them are even there's a drive going on right now of giving out mosquito nets.
So they use mosquito nets.
People get them, very many, then try to combine them or stitch them together. And they clear, they capture even those small, I don't know, they're called fingerlings, I think so. They're those baby, whatever, the small fish. I think they should be called fingerlings, I'm not so sure of that. But that is how it happens. And
Indeed. And it's funny how you're saying that these people are complaining about the Congolese fishermen. Now, let us look at our Navy, or rather our Navy. We don't have secure or particular boundaries when it comes to our water borders.
I think
to identify, because then we're having a challenge. It's not just the Congolese. Every time you hear that, I don't know what people have come through, what people are claiming, what island, what people. So we're having those challenges, I think, when it comes to our waters.
Yeah, I think so. And besides the waters, some of these fish comes from the lake and hits and it's transported on the road. So the other thing we have to look at is we have the porous borders, and I think there are also very big syndicates whereby you find the whole thing is coordinated, properly planned, and then things move smoothly all the way from the fish move from Lake Victoria to wherever. But I think something has to be done by the Ministry of Agriculture, where I'm sure tourism also falls into. And also a lot of vigilance, people should be vigilant, and also looking at, we definitely, all of us, most of us like eating fish, but in the near future,
it's one of my favorites.
There was some statistics that was released a few years ago, that in 50 years there won't be any fish in Lake Victoria.
And that is very sad, and that is very possible if you look at it. Well, let's take a look at this particular report.
Emerging conflict between Ugandan fishermen and Congolese counterparts that requires mediation by authorities from both countries. The fishing communities on Ugandan side accuse the Congolese for crossing the line on Lake George, where they have exhausted the fish stock.
They came here in our water disturbing us and take our nets in the Congo. If they take them there, they put them in the water.
I've had several meetings with their leadership in Congo. At one time, we even involved the ambassador of Congo here. That meeting we had it at police.
Residents allege that Congolese fishermen spend nights on small islands about 1 kilometer from the landing sites to block Ugandans from night fishing. They use undersized fish nets to catch immature fish on Lake George.
We don't want undersized nets. That one is managed. You can never bring those nets here. You must be arrested even by a mwananchi.
Our concern, mostly we need security. If government can assist us with the security, in fact, we have no problem.
But what I would like government to do is enforcement on the waters and on land. And the punishment should not go only to a boat owner, no. Our laws are weak somewhere.
Lake George, approximately 250 square kilometers with a depth of 2.4 meters, is located in the western part of the Rift Valley. The lake has rich stocks of tilapia, mudfish, langfish, and catfish. Mutonyi Hilda and Fredericks Idia for UBC.
Very interesting there, but without wasting much time, let us move on, and in this case focusing on the property market. Now, government needs to revise the regulation which seeks to enforce the shillings regime against the dollar in Uganda's property market. Now, while releasing the 2017 estate market report, Judy Rugasira Chanda of Knight Frank Properties Consultant says that the move is enforced by government, will lead to stagnation of the sector. Now, the 2017 Knight Frank Property Report shows a very slow recovery of the property markets. Now, it also shows the prospects of a significant growth in 2018.
Now,
Government should not apply knee-jerk reactions to complex and structural issues like the enforcement of the dollar versus shilling regime in the property market. While releasing of the Uganda Real Estate Market Update 2017, the Managing Director Knight Frank, Judy Rugasira Chanda, criticized the rental regime for threatening the recovery of Uganda's real estate sector in driving it full throttle into stagnation.
If as a landlord I'm charging US dollar rentals and the tenants feel that they can't afford it, they will go. And I will have to adjust accordingly. So government regulation has never really been the way forward in doing this, because they even lack the mechanism in which to monitor how these laws are working or not working. There's never follow-up, there's never evaluation to see what's happening and what's not happening. So it is a hot potato, it is an issue that will continue to raise a lot of challenges, but I can assure you, enforcing Uganda shilling rentals is not what is going to bring the issue of unaffordability into check.
The new Real Estate Market Report 2017 shows a significant increase of activity in residential sector and also 10% increase in the inquiries of Grade A office space. However, the once thriving retail sector landscape of Kampala was affected in the second half of 2017 by the closure of Nakumatt stores and their subsequent liquidation.
Businesses, retail businesses, financial businesses, commercial businesses are impacted. They do close. Why do they close? Sometimes it is due to poor performing economies. More than likely, it's due to very poor management, bad financial planning, restructuring, expansion and growth that is not facilitated with the right plan. Sometimes it's also due to the lack of understanding of the market that people are operating in. There are numerous dynamic factors that impact on the closure of a business.
With Uganda's economy expected to grow by 5% in 2018, the property market is expecting to flourish. A high GDP growth will boost public investments, growth in consumption, and in turn impact positively on the property market. Dennis Igoa for UBC News.
Now, there's definitely so many problems here that can lead to failure in a business or properties. And I think I agree that the whole shilling against the dollar, it's not going to solve anything if we don't go back down to the basics and go back down to the roots and look at some of the issues that we are facing, especially in the real estate business. Now, I don't know why, though, that many people focus on the whole dollar shilling aspect, Dennis.
You know, the dollar shilling, you see, most of the private developers currently get their money in loan. The loans, you see, they get their loans in dollars. So when they're constructing these buildings, they're using dollars. So they expect at the end of the day, they value everything in dollars. Then come the fact that you enforce the shilling, it really looks like there's a way, it's not that it really affects them. Because one, when they are constructing these buildings, like the apartments and stuff, there's a certain amount of money when the building is complete, they expecting there's a certain amount of money they're supposed to charge at the end of, as rent at the end of the month. But which they think is the right amount of money. But when you're forced to convert that into shillings, it looks like it's very high, yet they think it's not supposed to be that. Anyway, I think this story is a big one, and we really have to dissect it in the next week, and we need to do actually a very long piece to try and touch the common man, the tenant, the casita, of course, and try and dissect this. I'm sure for the
and of course the private sector has a lot to say on this one.
Definitely.
Indeed. Now, real quickly, we're going into our next report on oil and gas. Now, do remember, local content is something that we've always talked about. However, the issue that has always come up is how prepared or how ready are the Ugandans, the locals, to get themselves involved in this business.
The development phase includes the designing, procurement, and construction of the infrastructure required for production, processing, conversion, transportation, and storage of oil and gas. It is these key phases in the oil and gas value chain that could have a major socioeconomic impact to Uganda as an oil and gas producing country.
In our presentation, we list those goods and services and the anticipate amount of the schools and service for them to have a better and deeper understanding of those. So I believe the local company, the Ugandan company, will be very helpful and support the development of Kingfisher oil field.
The oil and gas industry is very lucrative, especially to the investors. However, it is also highly capital intensive. Therefore, Ugandan companies keen to participate and provide the much-needed services are encouraged to collaborate and bid as a joint venture.
But we want Ugandan companies to join hands together. If you are a catering service, for example, and there is a multi-billion contract to sign, and your capacity is not enough, it does no harm for you to actually combine with another company and come and bid as a single consortium or a single joint venture. And that's what we encourage in this, because the investment is going to be very big. We're talking of
the 2018 National Supplier Workshop by the China Offshore Oil Engineering Company, COEC, sought to bring Ugandans up to speed on numerous opportunities which they can tap into. Jessica Cheyune is the CNOC National Content Manager, Legal and Commercial.
There's a lot of work that is going to be done by Ugandan companies. The construction companies will have work for our artisans, the welders, the scaffolders, the painters. All those people will have work. Catering companies will have work, but mainly the logistics companies, because logistics is gazetted in the national content regulations for Ugandan companies. So we expect about 800,000 tons of equipment to be brought into the country, and so you could imagine how much value Ugandan companies are going to get.
CNOOC Uganda contracted COEC, an international energy service contractor, to conduct a study in Uganda in order to provide data and information critical in understanding the activities which will be held in the oil and gas sector. It will also look at how the company can reach a final investment decision and at what cost, among others. Dennis Ikoa for UBC News.
Well, we may not necessarily exhaust that, but I must say we are here Monday to Friday. Now, of course, I'll be letting you go, Dennis.
Yes, I have to run to the field.
Yes, and we have a guest here who's going to be talking to us about the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is, of course, a framework of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, looking at libraries. Now, many of you, I'll ask, how many of you have a reading culture? Now, that is where you see that many of us, especially, I don't want to say just Uganda, as Africans, reading culture is a bit complicated. But Dennis, I must say I have to let you go as we go into the break, and then we'll be back with the guest. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, but thank you for having me in the studio. But before I also step out, I'll say they say if you want to hide something from an African, there's that saying, put it in writing.
In writing, very true, very true. But please stay with us. This is Business Today. Business Today, I am Rowena Kajumba. Joining me in studios is Sarah Kadu, who is the president of Uganda Library Information Association. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I would love for you to be a little bit louder so that the people can hear what exactly you're talking about. But what we're here for basically is what you're dealing with, the project you're having, and in this case we're looking at the United Nations 2030 Agenda, yes, in this case for sustainable development as a framework of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and you're focusing on libraries. Very interesting. Tell me about what the agenda is, the 2030 United Nations Agenda.
The UN 2030 Agenda is the agenda for everyone.
Okay.
It's interesting to learn that previously we had the MDGs,
yes,
and people thought worldwide that they were not inclusive. So at the end of the 2015, the new goals came in that are inclusive. So hence, the world we want, no one should be left behind. And the SDGs are 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 targets. And we want to see by 2030 we'll have achieved all the goals as stipulated in the agenda.
Okay. Now, you're using libraries as a key, in this case, as a key institution to achieve these goals. Why are we seeing this? Why are you focusing on libraries?
Actually, that is a very interesting question. Libraries are key institutions in the achievement of the SDGs. Reasons are librarians and library institutions are involved into the information transfer process. And the information transfer process involves the generation of information, involves the acquisition, the processing, and etc. and etc. So that's why libraries are very key institutions in achieving the SDGs. And efforts have been made by libraries all over the world to campaign for the SDGs.
Very interesting. Now, 2030, that seems very close. We're in 2018, and this is an agenda that probably kicked off in 2016. How achievable is this? Do you feel like maybe by 2030, because you're looking at inclusiveness and not leaving anyone behind, by 2030, how achievable is this?
I think the goals will be quite achievable if we are not too ambitious. What is happening is that we have to prioritize according to our needs. If we see we have, for instance, climate as an issue, quality education, or access to information, then we concentrate on that. At the time frame given to us, then we report back to the UN member institutions and about the progress so far made.
Interesting.
So 15 years down the road, I'm sure we shall report progress because as we remember, no one should be left behind.
And now, do you feel like there is progress in, since 2016? It's just about, what, 2 years. Do you feel that maybe this is something that is yielding, you're seeing hope anyway for yielding some results?
Oh yes. Speaking from library perspective, I think the library fraternity is very eager towards the support, towards raising awareness, towards bringing everyone on board, towards working with the communities, towards working with the policymakers, and etc. in realizing the achievement of the goals. So far, it's still relatively new, as you say, that we've just started implementing the goals. But efforts have been made. I can report that Uganda Library and Information Association embarked on a strategy of raising awareness and also bringing everyone on board to support the attainment of the UN 2030 agenda.
That is very interesting. Now let us look at the fact that times have changed. Things don't happen anymore where people have to walk into a library to get a book, but we see that we're heading into a more improved, diverse style, or rather technologies, new and improved technologies. And some of the things I can see that you're focusing on here is the ICT. Let us focus on that in regards to the ICT.
I think we are into the ICT era and we cannot run away from it. Yes, I'm also aware that ICTs are tools or enablers in the information transfer process. So the fact that we are working with the youth, whom I can say that they're majority in the struggle of the ICTs implementation and access and usage, then I think the youth, we are really concentrating so much on the youth to help us use the available ICTs, for instance, the social media platforms, etc., in the information transfer process and the generation of information. And then also raising awareness into the 2030 agenda. I'm sure the UN people wouldn't be happy to say UN 2030 agenda because they are our goals.
Indeed, very interesting. Now let us look at the culture of reading. Not just Uganda, but it seems like it's a problem in the East African region and also maybe Africa at large. Apart from maybe West Africa, they're trying. But let us look at the fact that reading culture here is a challenge. Couldn't it be a challenge that you're facing right now?
Oh, yeah. Reading culture in Uganda is still a very big challenge, I must say. And it's mainly because our parents were not readers. I may not have facts as such, but borrowing from the adage, a reading parent, a reading child, I think we still have a lot to do. So you realize when you grow up, many of us come from families where we don't have even a book at home. All you need to do is to do the assignments. So maybe I also attribute to the education system as well. That is also, there are so many people that are really into play, especially when we are really talking about reading culture as a challenge. However, the situation is not really grim as such. Efforts have been made, especially with the Uganda Libraries and Information Association, and then also the National Library of Uganda, into improving the image, so that at least we have a reading communities, we have our children start reading at an early age, especially for leisure, and not only to maybe sit for exams. And also encouraging the parents to come along with the children to the information institutions, especially public libraries. I'm sure in all our districts, the government has done quite a lot to put in place a public library. And one of the functions of the public libraries is to improve the reading culture, because without a reading nation, then we shall not have a nation per se. So when you get access to information, which information is reliable, then you can make meaningful decisions. Well, I know some people can make decisions without access to information, but I think that will be a very sorry state.
Indeed.
And we don't want to see Uganda going that way.
Indeed. So what is the structure that you're using, or what are those things you're looking at in regards to curbing this situation that we have in regards to our reading culture, or in regards to changing the mindset of the Ugandans to learn how to read, not just for the sake of read, not just because I have to read, but because they actually enjoy to read and get themselves informed. What are we looking at here? What are those things you're doing, especially, if I could say, involving our youth?
That's equal and very interesting question. What I can say, the issues related to reading culture, development, shouldn't be done by one person.
Yes.
So we have concerted efforts coming from civil society, the communities themselves, the political leaders, and also the librarians too, who are encouraging these library institutions be set up in every community where we live. And if they are in place and well stocked with the information that people need according to their needs, then the people within the communities can easily access the information. And also to attract young readers, because we want to have a reading nation. And if an adult is already up there, it becomes a little bit challenging. So what is happening is to work with the youth, because we want to see them tomorrow better than we are today. So the youth have been involved in quite a number of activities that include reading. Reading, not only necessarily reading a book, but reading using various formats. These days we've heard also about the e-books, because we know these people really like these tools, the gadgets. So you cannot confine someone to one place, a room, and say the books are here, get the book, start reading. We want them to read also using maybe their smartphones and various formats. If they are walking, say, in a bus, so they should pull out their tabs and read an e-book, not necessarily for exams, but also to broaden their knowledge. So the community libraries are also doing quite a good job. And the National Library, I've seen it having lots of activities, especially if you look at the reading tents, whereby the parents are also come along with the children. The children also take part into the reading activities, storytelling, writing stories, and then we shall have better authors who are going to write. The reading culture cannot be realized if we don't have the information materials to read as well. So the writing has to be improved.
Okay. Now tell me about your workshops real quickly as we wind up, and how many you've gone at so far. And in that case, if it has yielded any results when you go for these workshops, you feel like, yes, people are willing to be a part of this.
Thank you so much. Uganda Library and Information Association won a grant from the International Federation of Library Association and Institutions, which is the global voice of librarians worldwide. This grant was to enable us advocate for the UN 2030 agenda by raising awareness to all the communities and also to bring everyone on board to support. So far we've worked with policymakers, community leaders, technocrats, and the librarians. That the purpose is we want them to advocate. We want them to speak the language that we want, which is no one should be left behind.
Yes.
And so far, we've held 4 workshops across the regions of Uganda. That is the northern region. We held a workshop, the advocacy workshop on the UN 2030 agenda. And then we also had one in the eastern region, and another was in the central region. And then we also had one, I talked about the northern, eastern, western,
yes.
and then the central region. And the central region was quite interesting because we brought on board countries within our original East Africa region. So we actually hosted our colleagues from Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. So we want to take it again, and we want to take it away from that and bring the leaders from Sub-Saharan Africa. So Uganda Library and Information Association has also got another support from International Federation of Library Association and Institution to again embark on documenting stories that matter to the political leaders and the action officers.
Now lastly, a last remark in regards to the 2030 agenda.
I'm calling upon everyone into the struggle of having the world we want. And we don't want to leave anyone behind. To join us, and we should work with everyone, the civil society, NGOs, public institutions, libraries, etc., to realize the 2030 agenda as per the time frame.
Well, thank you so much. Everyone watching there, I'm with Sarah Kadu, of course, who is the President, Uganda Library Information Association, and she has pointed out a number of things. I think we should all be part of this cause. We should all be a part of this and make sure that we change the culture, in this case, to achieve a certain goal. And someone always says that if you don't have an educated mass, if you don't have an educated country or anything, in the future it comes back down to you and bites you in all kinds of ways, because then it comes back down to how the economy is going to be affected. If you have no information, you'll definitely work without good knowledge or not knowing how best you can work. Yesterday I was at a workshop and we talked about things like this, because in the informal sector it's about 70% of women, and about 60% of those don't even know what they should be doing and what their rights are in regards to the business. Well, I do appreciate you so much. I leave you with a business bite that is on cultural tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.